Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, an inspired conversation space between Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner on the journey of motherhood through the common thread of parenting, relationship, and sexuality as a path to consciousness.
We keep our conversations honest, our experiences real, and our philosophies exploratory. We believe that in order to raise incredible humans, we first have to raise ourselves. We know that in order to rock the family, you've got to nourish the mother. If you are here, you care about paving a path of conscious and intentional motherhood, connected with yourself and your gifts, and also illuminating your children in theirs so we may raise more whole humans who can impact this world in a more humane way.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively, head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper. And for all live-streamed pre-release podcasts and all our free content, head over to our free Facebook group, Nourishing the Mother with Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner. We are Julie Tenner and Bridget Wood, and we are so grateful you're here.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast is Resenting the People We Love Puts Us in a Cage. How do we break free? Part 2, because if you listened to last week and if you didn't, please go back. It's actually a fantastic conversation. We often have our best conversations when we go off tangents. Yeah, or off from what we were supposed to be doing, which was the plan.
Very clear 3 points that we were going to concisely deliver. But instead, we took the garden path.
Yes, we did. And it was it was full of lived experience, which I often think we can only really understand ourselves through the experiences of others.
Yes.
You know, like we can identify, we can understand big concepts when they're real life situations.
It gives you something tangible to hold on to and see in your own life.
So please go back and listen to part 1 on this topic. But part 2, the purpose of this is we actually want to deliver you the plan.
Yes.
Which is 3 steps. So we want to say that when it comes to recognizing that we're building resentment, which is creating separation between us and someone we love, and that there's pain in that, but there's also pain in the polarization that keeps us caged, then what we want to offer you is 3 steps to start considering so that you have kind of a clear pathway and you can just pick one.
Yeah.
So step number 1 is to break free of the cage that's self-imposed from the resentment, which if you followed on from last week, we are continuously reinforcing and remyelinating by finding people who support us, by seeing the world that way and continuing to find support that way, by getting neurochemical hit up. We're just reinforcing. My belief is right. My belief is right. I can't let go of my identity. This is the way the world is. This is the way I am.
And this is because this is purely physics, right? Like in physics, like attracts like. So we are attracting those which are like us. And in that process of that attraction, we repulse those who are not like us. And the attraction of those who are like us, we're like, oh, yeah, I belong. Oh, this is what it means to be in the world. This is what success is. And we kind of feel good in that. And then until we realize, oh, I'm actually got a cage though, because my world's getting smaller and smaller. The more I go, yes, this is the only way, or yes, this is how it has to be.
Yes. So number 1 is you've got to see the cage first, because often what will happen is when we're in our own self-righteousness, so when we have put ourselves up above others and we have said, my way of relating, my way of being in the world, my way of doing things or treating people is better than yours. We put ourselves above others and we can't love in that space.
No.
We're not open-hearted and available in that space. We're not seeing the grace or living in the grace. But it feels pretty uncomfortable to consider that we're not right.
Yeah.
Humility actually kind of stings sometimes.
It does. Yeah. And our self-worth can take a hit because our self-worth is wrapped up in
our identity. Created and reinforced by this belief system. So we actually have to see that we're in a cage first. So seeing what the cost is to you. What is it costing you to continue this belief? What is it? You can just ask that question. Or I would say sometimes it's even easier to go through, something like a version of the 7 areas of life. What is it costing me financially to continue this belief?
Yeah.
What is it costing me within my family life to continue this belief? What is it costing me within my relationship to continue this belief? What is it costing me to hold on to this in all of the areas of my life? In my work, in my career, in my self-empowerment, in my self-development, in my spirituality, in my finances, in my health, physical and mental and emotional. Like, actually start to name the things. What is it costing you to keep this? Because they're in balance. Gain and loss are in balance.
They're entangled. And you ask this question enough, and usually as long as you don't collapse within it into some kind of shame or guilt spiral, don't go there. Ask yourself the question enough times so that it initiates desire within you to create change, that it puts like the rocket underneath you to go, I want to take responsibility for this now. I can see that there is a different way that this could be if I didn't hold so strongly to how I think it needs to be right now.
Yes. It's intrinsic, right? It's self-inspired as opposed to going, well, Bridget and Julie said that I should. No, not extrinsic, not trying to should yourself. This is intrinsic. I see the value.
Yeah. And when you name it and see it for yourself and see, what could be different that feels hard right now in some of those relationships, and that naturally will create inspiration from within you to change it, not the should from outside of you that feels punishing, that, like you'll be better somehow if you change that. Number 2 is to self-evaluate.
You could do that too.
Yeah, you could. Number 2, self-evaluate your contribution to the dynamic. So very often when we're in resentment, we want to make it all about the other person. We want to cast them in this villainous kind of role, or in this position that casts them in all of the undesirable traits, right? Of all the ways that are ineffective and toxic. But which part do you play? And also, because in neurobiology, everybody else around us sets us up to feel what it feels like to be them. How are they in relationship to you, showing you what it feels like to be them?
So good.
Because they're doing, and the beautiful thing to do this is with your children, because they will show you what it feels like to be in relationship with you the moment after something hard for them happens. And so I'm not going to go into the whole story. I went into it in my group around car seats and my daughter and all that stuff. But it's really powerful to consider that with the person we most resent is, how is everything that they're setting me up to feel a reflection of the dynamic that I am co-creating with them? So how am I participating in the creation of this feeling so that I can take some self-responsibility for how I'm showing up?
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because here's the interesting thing, I think, with our community is we can say to our community, I think largely, that your children will set you up to feel as they do. And many mothers kind of let that sink into their heart, and they're like, yep, I get it. I get it. So they're feeling exactly as I am. My responsibility is, what do I do with this feeling so that I can lead the way in moving it through my body without mud throwing shit on everybody around me.
Back at them or at someone else.
Instead of wielding it around, how do I show them the path of grace of how I move this feeling through my body and then invite them into that as a process? Most mothers in our community, I would say, get that, even if they need help.
And even if they, don't always do it, neither do we, right?
No,
like
it's not an always thing.
But you grasp the concept, you know what we're saying when we talk about it. What if you could do that for the person you're most in resentment with you in your family?
Because that's where we stop. Oh, no. Yes, it's true with my children, but not with anybody else.
Yeah, because I'm creating this amazing God, like conscious family over here that's different to where I've come from. Yeah. And it's not possible with where I've come from.
Yes. And, I was thinking this all of the time. God is present everywhere or nowhere.
Yeah. Ouch, right?
Like, we can't go, here is my family environment is godlike, but that isn't where I came from. God isn't there.
Yeah.
Right, like God is everywhere or God is nowhere. you can't, as a human in an incarnation, say you understand what is God and what is not, and therefore you have the 411 on saying that isn't, that's in, that's out.
Yeah, that's right, that's wrong. You know, you're like Santa, and you're naughty and you're nice.
Conceive of or see the complexity with which God, whoever, divine source, spirit, creates with such an innate intelligence. Like we can't comprehend it. So God is everywhere or God is nowhere. That's true consciousness.
Which is so hard to get when we're in these really visceral human feelings of black and white thinking. All or nothing, always, never. She can't, she won't, they're not, I won't, right?
Yeah.
Like to take yourself out of that to this place of, wow, you know, everything that I say that I resent and can't stand about where I've come from, there's stuff to love there.
Yeah.
God is there. There's things I can admire about that.
Yeah. There's perfection, there's divine orchestration, there is love, there is consciousness there. Yeah, totally. 100%. So how do we wind this back? Where we want to go here is, I loved your point on they set you up to feel as they do. And I also, even though it stings, I love that reflection of they are showing you how you truly are to be within relationship.
Yeah.
Because we're not the most, you know, we're not like, oh my God, I'm so amazing at love because of how amazing I am with my amazingly perfect environment in this 5 minutes with my children.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you actually, your emotional intelligence is actually what it is when you're most under pressure.
Yeah, that's when
in your worst moment is actually your level of emotional intelligence. What you do in your worst moment, what you do when that person in front of you is in their worst moment is your level of emotional intelligence.
Because what happens in stress is we regress.
Right.
We regress back to the emotional development at particular ages where previous stressful events occurred that we have a pattern on.
Yeah.
So that is why we can be seemingly irrational as mothers in dynamic with our children, because when stressed, we regress.
Yes.
And that is why our children give us the ultimate practice at emotional intelligence. And in fact, so do our family of origin, because we will also regress back to the roles that we played with them.
Yes, yes. And now we're back in the dynamic and we're back in giving each other the drug hits and we're back in the original blueprint of love that we knew, which was last week's episode.
Yeah, when you talked about, you know, I'm in my inner child right now, because in that moment there was enough stress that felt familiar enough from a pattern you've long held
back we
that
go.
you're right back there.
Yeah, 100%. So I just love that as a concept when we're talking about step 2, after we've seen the cage. Step 2 is to oh my God, I just did what you did. Oh my goodness. Self-evaluate your contribution to it. And part of that is seeing, okay, they set you up to feel as they do. That's amazing to know. Okay, they're feeling exactly as I am. We're more the same than different. How can you love less when you're there? And also they're showing you your emotional intelligence and how it is to be in relationship with you. So how are you going to show up for that?
Yeah.
Are you truly a lover? Are you walking that path or not?
Or is your propensity to tip into self-righteousness as a way to protect yourself from
out of congruence?
Yeah.
So this is also one of our points, was your boundaries, that we can say, I have such wonderful boundaries with my mother or whoever around us. Your boundaries are beautiful, and also we have to be aware when they've tipped so far that they just become a form of protecting our own self-righteousness and holding true our belief system that we want to hold as right and the only way of seeing the world, our children, parenting this moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's such a nuance to boundaries, because sometimes they can be really healthy and important, in terms of us retaining our connection with ourselves, and other times they actually give us permission to perpetuate pretty unhealthy cycles and pretty unhealthy patterns of self-righteousness.
Which is a lot like that podcast we did on when we were talking about when we're like fighting the good fight of whatever that is for us, and either we're in our heart or we're out.
Yeah, the activist one. It was
the activist one,
anger, stuck anger or activism.
Yes, I feel like it's very similar here, because when you're putting up a boundary or you're in the lived experience of your boundary,
Mm-hmm.
you really got to also be able to check in and go, am I open-hearted?
Mm-hmm.
Like, am I still able to feel me and the truest, most like in the center of my heart, body, me,
Mm-hmm.
and the other person? I'm still available for this flow of love.
Yeah.
Or is my heart actually blocked and switched off? I've gone into self-righteousness. I'm now protecting.
Or and I mean, sometimes that is natural human behavior, because if your values get challenged enough, you will do that.
But it's so worth seeing, though.
Because you want to know that.
You want to know. It's feedback.
It's like, oh, right, I get really closed and shitty and like, defensive when my mother-in-law or mother makes that particular comment, or, brings up this particular topic, because for me, it's like, you've crossed, you're attempting to cross the threshold of my value system, which I hold on deeply to. And so we're designed to defend that. But what if in that defense of it, we're not actually able to see wider, to see where the form of love is that we're saying doesn't exist, for example?
Totally. 100%. I love it.
Just a brief break to the podcast to let you know what's happening in our world. So in bridgetwood.life, you will find Reimagining Motherhood, which is a beautiful membership space where you can come into and really be held and seen in community of other women who are really seeking to expand themselves in motherhood and really be at that intersection of where conscious parenting and the whole woman collide. So it's not either or, it is this beautiful melting pot of the two, so that you can really dig deep and expand who you are on this mothering journey. And what about you, Jules?
Is Queen School. So Queen School is now an online course with 4 full modules that you are self-paced and work your way through, combined with 12 months of really stretching that out as I help you really integrate, embody, and move through the blocks so that you can literally become Queen School in your life. So Queen School is all about connection, pleasure, sensuality, magnetic communication, feminine energy, and embodiment with me over now a beautifully integrated 12-month experience. So you can find out more at julietenner.love. Just checking. I think we've done the rest of our points there. Conflict is a strategy for connection. We did kind of talk about that in last week's episode.
Yeah, we did a little. Conflict can also be a way to get connection. Like, if you came from chaos, right? Chaos really well. And so you can initiate conflict in order to get to, okay, I know what to do here. I know how to be in chaos, right?
Yeah, because it was all just super calm. I'm like, something's about to happen. What the fuck is going on?
Yeah, I don't know how to be here.
Yeah.
And the inverse can be true.
Yes, totally.
If you only know calm, then chaos can feel extremely terrifying.
Yes.
So what are you wired for?
Yeah.
And how can you build, how can you build a little bit of flexibility by dipping a bit more? Like for you, Julie, it's like, how can I make ease safe?
Yeah.
For me, how can I make more chaos safe?
Yeah, totally. 100%. What you're wired for. And we just also want to float with you once again, which we will reiterate from last week's call, was that there's always this conservation of acceptance and rejection. So where you perceive that you're rejected from someone, where in that exact, so you've got to put yourself in the memory, where in that exact same moment was I deeply accepted? Where am I being accepted? In the same moment that I'm being rejected, because in this universe, everything is happening in the same moment. And they're always equilibrating opposites, like they hold the same weight, like a set of scales, perfectly balanced.
The universe is a conservation of pairs of opposites. So one can't exist without the other. It's just that our brain can't perceive both.
Yes.
It stores both, but only one is able to be recalled in our awareness. And the one that's able to be recalled in our awareness is perfect for our values and our existing beliefs. And we hide from our consciousness the other side. But if we ask the question and get good practice at immediately going, wow, I'm really being accepted and supported right now. Who's rejecting me? Doesn't have to be right with you in the room.
Yes.
It's somewhere.
Because you don't want to get addicted to the support.
Yeah,
because then you'll hate the challenge even more.
And you'll actually
challenger.
And you'll attract more challenge the more addicted you are to being supported.
It's true.
The other point we had around conflict was, how is conflict a strategy for connection in other areas of life important to you? So you may find, for example, that the conflict that you have with your mother becomes a talking point with your husband, and you get closer, or it becomes a common thread that you hash out with your best friend, and that really reaffirms the strength of your friendship. And so if you were to let go of that conflict, then is there a part of you that feels like you might undermine these other relationships that are so important to you, and you don't want to do that? So in some ways the conflict is safe.
It's so good. Actually, I just had a flashback memory as you were literally saying that. Was I instantly have a deeper bond, connection, desire to be with someone who also has a shit mum. All I have to say is make some little side mention to mum trauma or how, shitty their mum is.
And I'm like, right.
I'm like, let's be best friends.
Hey, bestie.
Yeah.
What you do tonight? Can we hash out this mother wound,
And they're like, because of my mum. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah. I've been around the block on that one.
Good.
And so this is we're not trying to say, don't do this, but just bring awareness to it.
Just an awareness practice. Because then you're not run by it and it's not a cage. It's a choice.
It's a choice. And then when you realize it's a choice, it opens up, your neural capacity for seeing a different choice available to you.
Totally, 100%. Step number 3 is the tightrope walk of the good, bad mother binary.
So we touched on this a little bit in last week's podcast, but it was really just that very often our conflicts with our mothers are governed a lot by what we have internalized a good mother is or a good mother does. And what that does is a little bit like we talked about last week. It doesn't allow that mother, that woman, that human, the permission to be a fully complex human. It only allows that person to exist within the framework of what we've decided is the good mother. And anything outside of that,
that in and of itself is toxic, isn't it? Just the more I think about it, and it's 100% me, I have to continuously de-fantasize myself. So it's 100% me. I'm not saying this is not. But the more I sink into it, the more I kind of hate that I revert to that, because it almost clashes with one of my deepest, activist, feminist belief systems, because it's so patriarchal. It's so system-based.
But the interesting thing is that very often too, if we hold mothering as a high value, we're in this bind because we want there to be something that is held up that we should strive for, right? We're complicit in the perpetuation of perfect mother ideology because there's many parts of us that actually subscribe to that, right? But at the same time, there's pain when we realize we're holding our own mother up to that, and we're holding ourselves up to that in some ways that we simply cannot be. And so it's just bringing that awareness of, where am I comparing my mother to this perfect unicorn mother fantasy all wrapped up into one? Where am I doing that to myself? And also too,
it's like a Mills and Boons book, only about the mother.
It is. And think also too, for us,
she would do this and then I would do that, and then I would feel these things and then I wouldn't feel those things.
And making the distinction between mothering, like the practice, and motherhood, the institution. Because it's motherhood, the institution, that reinforces this good mother, bad mother binary. And the good mother isn't not just in her mothering practice, it's how well her house is kept and how organized she is and how much she cares and thinks about all these other people and how she puts herself last, but actually not so far last, because she also contributes a lot to her community, and she has a great thriving relationship, and she's building this amazing career.
And she's hot.
And she's hot, of course, and she doesn't look old.
I really just love the more that we can tease it. The more we let go of the grip.
Well, because you can kind of go, oh fuck, that's it. That's what I'm holding her, me, others too.
Yeah, I just love it. So I'm just going to recap for us that if you find yourself here and you're really facing one of these resentment cycles, that we just want you to consider, simply for the purpose of, how do I relieve the cage that is my, like, what feels like this really intense emotional experience that creates this sense of scarcity and holding on, gripping around my heart and around my life. How do I relieve that? Well, I relieve my polarizations, which are driving that, neurochemical, hormonal feeling state. Yeah. So how do I loosen the feeling state? Because if I didn't feel so intensely and it didn't kind of derail me so much, I would actually have more freedom to choose to navigate myself, to live the most aligned life as I evolve.
Yes.
Not holding on to and trying so desperately to tie myself to the belief systems that I held 10 years ago.
Yes. And the beautiful liberatory thing about doing that is that you allow more flexibility for your children to occupy, many different subject positions as you allow that for yourself. Because they push us, they will push us. And if we hold on too tightly to what we've prescribed for ourselves is our role, and because our role often depends on them fitting and playing into the role we've cast them into.
Totally.
So that our rigidity directly affects them too. Our flexibility directly relieves them.
Man, holy moly. Say that again.
Well, our rigidity directly affects them, right? The more rigid we hold on to our role, as I've cast myself in this role of mother, in this lifestyle of mother, the more I'm, needing my child to uphold or conform to the role that they need to be in order for me to continue to participate in this role I'm in. Yeah. So the more flexibility I allow myself, or the different ways that I allow myself to occupy different roles, the more I'm not attached to and fixated on my child having to fit one too. Because a lot of resentment mothers have is the deep challenge to their own values that occurs when their child lives, outside the role that they've put them in. When their child doesn't fit, the particular educational pathway that they've decided for them.
Yes.
For you, I wonder if there was a bit of a rage journey that you had to go through when you recognized Heath wasn't going to fit.
Oh my gosh, of course.
Right. And there probably was a resentment toward him.
Yeah.
For a period until you worked through that and recognized, okay, how can I get those values that are mine met elsewhere?
Totally, 100%.
So I can allow him to be who he is.
Yeah, 100%. So we're hoping that we've sold why you want to stretch your perceptions and that you see the value. And then the 3 steps that we want you to consider are, number 1, to see the cage that you've self-imposed and created.
Yes.
Number 2, do the work of self-evaluating your contribution to the dynamic that you're in. And number 3, contemplate the tightrope walk of the good, bad mother binary that you're running.
Yes.
So how do we do more of that work with you, Bridge?
Hop into Reimagining Motherhood, where we have monthly or twice monthly Elixir coaching sessions. So it's where we take a concept and we turn it all around and we do one-to-one work within that group. And also there's general trainings and workshops around many of these concepts as well. So you can find out more about that at bridgetwood.life. And you?
You can jump into the Queen School Honey Club combo, which is where we slowly, beautifully, deliciously integrate all of the work of becoming better lovers so that we may experience better quality love in our life. And you can find out more at julietenner.love.
Remember to nourish the woman to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
Thank you so much for listening. We literally couldn't do this without you. Please share this podcast with anyone you think it would be medicine for.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively into your life, then head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper.
And if you feel like giving back a little to this free content, please rate us on iTunes or Facebook, all of which helps the podcast reach more mamas who need this type of tonic for the soul.